Boeing literally drained almost 30% of its bank account this quarter just to shred $7 billion in debt, which is honestly the ultimate financial mic drop.
It is brutal, but it's exactly what you do when you want to prove you're finally turning the ship around.
Fair point. Welcome to Earnings Unscripted, everyone. It is April 22nd, 2026, and today we are tearing into Q1 results for Boeing, ticker BA. The aerospace giant actually had a really fascinating quarter.
Very fascinating. And just to clear the air before we start critiquing their supply chain, this is just two friends talking markets. It is not financial advice, so please do not reorganize your portfolio based on my skepticism.
Right, exactly. Please do your own homework. So looking at the stock, coming into this print, the tape was actually, well, it was pretty ugly, down about 13% over the quarter. But then they dropped these numbers and momentum just reversed. Gapped up, climbed all morning, and closed the extended session up nearly 6%.
Yeah, the market saw a pulse.
Right, because even though they still posted a core loss of 20 cents a share, the top line was huge. Revenue came in at $22.21 billion. That is up 14% year over year. The core operating margin even crept up to 1.3%. So they're actually, making money on operations again.
They are. The revenue bump is mostly just the commercial segment finally delivering airplanes. I mean, 143 planes went out the door compared to 130 last year. But honestly, the defense side is what caught my eye.
Oh, BDS?
Yeah. The defense and space segment printed a 3.1% operating margin.
Wow. Okay. After all those massive billion-dollar charges they were taking on the fixed price stuff?
Right. The bleeding stopped. No new major forward losses this quarter. And with global defense budgets expanding, posting a positive margin means they can finally play offense instead of just apologizing for legacy contracts.
That has to be such a huge relief for them internally. And speaking of playing offense, they also had the Artemis II launch this quarter. The core stage rocket they built actually helped put that mission into orbit. So there are real, human pride moments happening alongside the spreadsheets. But I am still stuck on the cash drop, Miro. You do not just casually spend down $8.5 billion in liquidity in 90 days.
No, you really don't. That is aggressive capital discipline. They took the hit to their cash pile to knock out $6.9 billion of consolidated debt.
Just wiped it out.
Just wiped it out. Total cash sits at $20.9 billion now, and that is a very clear signal to the bond market. It essentially says, look, we trust our factory recovery enough to sacrifice our safety cushion.
Which takes guts, especially since we know they still have to pay that giant Department of Justice settlement later this year. But it wasn't all perfectly smooth, right? Because they're making planes faster, but there's this wild bottleneck with the 787 wide bodies. They're just sitting around waiting for premium cabin seats.
Yes, getting the pig through the python, as the CEO so eloquently called it. The airframes are built, but if you don't have an FAA-certified luxury chair, you can't legally deliver a $150 million asset. And then you add the massive cash drag from integrating Spirit AeroSystems back into the fold.
All right, let's get into the details on that.
It is completely bizarre. The supply chain for the airframes is actually humming in Everett, but they cannot ship these fully built 787s because of uncertified premium luxury seats.
Literally waiting on a chair.
Literally a chair, but a chair that needs FAA sign-off before it can fly a passenger. Orpert called it getting the pig through the python on the call. And the really frustrating part is, well, you pair that seat bottleneck with the sheer operational drag of reabsorbing Spirit AeroSystems.
Right, which we always knew was going to hurt. I mean, they paid over $8 billion last year just to bring Spirit back in-house.
They did, but the real pain is the operating cost today. Jay Malinay said it right out loud. Spirit is driving a $1 billion negative cash drag this year alone. It is purely dragging down commercial airplane margins because Boeing has to overhaul Spirit's deeply inefficient processes.
Okay, but they kind of had no choice, right? They absolutely had to buy it back to stop the bleeding on quality control. It is an expensive fix, but a mandatory one.
Oh, definitely mandatory. But quality control costs hard cash up front. It is raw operational entropy. You have to spend the cash to force the system back to baseline. And that integration actively diluted the whole BCA operating margin down to negative 6.1% for the quarter.
Yeah. But you can actually see them fighting that entropy on the ground, not just with management directives, but literally in how they build the planes now, like what they are doing with the new North Line in Everett.
Right, the apprenticeship program. That is probably one of the smartest things I saw in the report.
It is so human. They are trying to jump to 52 737s a month by summer, but instead of just throwing raw recruits at this shiny new factory up in Everett, they're running the new hires through the legacy Renton plant first.
Teaming them up with the grizzled veterans.
Yes, it's just structured on-the-job training. They shadow the senior mechanics to learn the stable processes before they ever touch the new modernized line. It feels like they're finally remembering how to pass down institutional knowledge.
Which is critical. I mean, a factory is just a massive human control system. If the people do not have the muscle memory, the tooling doesn't matter.
And the people are actually fixing the tooling, too. The frontline mechanics in Renton just organically designed this entirely new drill jig for the MAX wingtips, just entirely on their own.
Yeah, that detail really stuck out to me.
A 30% reduction in wingtip drilling defects overnight, just because the guys doing the work were empowered to build a better tool. It is a massive bright spot.
It is, and it proves they can solve problems dynamically again. They had a minor wiring notice of escapement hit 25 MAX units this quarter too, but they already reworked all of them. The line barely blinked, which means the safety management system absorbed a shock without breaking the 500-unit delivery target for the year.
Right. So, the 737 recovery is actually starting to look like a functional machine again?
Yes, but then you look across the floor at the 777X, and it is a completely different story.
Oh, right. The retrofits.
This is the dark side of early testing, because Boeing built roughly 30 of these 777X airframes years ago. They are basically all in slightly different states of testing and compliance. So now they have to perform these massive teardowns.
Meaning they essentially unbuild the airplane.
Pretty much. They have to strip them down to one single common baseline configuration. Only then can they incorporate all the final design changes. Ortberg said, "We think that is going to be the most efficient way."
Just the phrase, most efficient way, doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
A tremendous amount of lifting, because if ripping apart 30 wide-body jets is your best option, the other options are horrific. It's going to be this massive multi-year labor black hole. The financial hit is already baked into those past estimates at completion, but you still have to dedicate the actual mechanics to do the physical work.
Right. The cash might be accounted for, but the time is lost forever. It just goes to show how long the shadow of these past delays actually is. So, taking all that into account, the really impressive progress and the incredibly frustrating hangovers, where does this actually leave their trajectory going into the rest of the year?
It looks like they are betting the next few months on, well, just flawless execution. Malave guided for another cash outflow in Q2, roughly low hundreds of millions, before they finally flip positive in the back half.
Right. And that back half is doing a tremendous amount of work because, they still have to actually write that DOJ check, right? The $689 million settlement is due then.
Exactly. That comes out in H2. So for the math to work and hit that $1 to $3 billion full-year free cash flow target, the commercial side has to, absolutely hum. They need the 737 jumping to 47 a month this summer and the 787 hitting 10 a month by year-end.
Which loops right back to the Spirit integration and the missing luxury chairs we talked about. I actually really appreciated Ortberg's honesty on the call, though. He literally said, "I wish it was a little more linear than what it is, but we are working through those issues."
That is a great quote, and it is entirely accurate. The aerospace supply chain is never linear. It is a highly constrained physical system. But look, you have to give them credit where it is due. They stabilized the defense segment, they aggressively paid down the debt, and the mechanics on the floor are organically fixing the processes.
Yeah, exactly. It really feels like they finally stopped playing defense against their own history. Now they just have to, physically build the planes.
Which is ironically the hard part. But they have a legitimate operational floor to stand on for the first time in a very long time.
Well said. All right. That is going to wrap our look at Boeing's bumpy but genuinely real recovery this quarter. Thanks for navigating the noise with us today, everyone.
Keep your tray table securely stowed. Take care.
And hey, if you want these earnings breakdowns to just quietly drop into your feed, hitting follow is the easiest way. Just a quick aside, we actually use AI tools to help us turn those massive drive filings into these actual human conversations. So if there is a ticker you want us to pull apart next time, drop a note to earningsunscripted@datamadness.ca or grab the X link in the show notes. We will catch you after the next bell.
See you next time.